Picture yourself as a farmer in ancient Mesopotamia, standing beneath the towering mud brick walls of a city like Uruk. The sun warming your shoulders as you survey your barley fields. Freedom here wasn't the open horizon or the choice to roam. It was the moment a herald announced a king's jubilee, your debts erased, your family spared the chains of slavery. It was the quiet relief of knowing your loyalty to the city-state's ruler brought protection soldiers to fend off raiders, canneries to store your harvest. Psychologically, this speaks to our primal need for security. Teas show that when survival feels uncertain, humans cling to structure, to systems that promise safety. In Mesopotamia, that structure was the city, its walls a shield against chaos. But freedom came with a tether. Your labor built the ziggurats, your taxes fed the priests, and one missed payment could unravel it all. Imagine the weight of that. Bargain safety for service. Have you ever felt that kind of freedom, where stability comes at the cost of your choices? It's a fragile balance, one the Mesopotamians knew well, their lives woven into the rhythm of the Tigris and Euphrates, where freedom was less a right than a gift, granted by the king's mercy or the river's flow. Now drift to the Indus Valley, where you're a merchant in Mohenjo-daro, walking streets laid out with uncanny precision, the air carrying the scent of baked clay and spices. Freedom here was the hum of a city in harmony-need grids, shared baths and markets where you could trade your carved seals with confidence. The weights were standard, the drains kept clean, and the rules unspoken but clear. This reflects what psychologists call social cohesion, where trust in a community eases fear and fosters a shared sense of freedom. You could barter for goods from distant lands, knowing the city's order held firm. But harmony demanded conformity. Step outside the silent agreements trade unfairly, disrupt the peace, and you risked being cast to the margins. Picture yourself in that bustling market, your stall a small piece of a larger whole. Have you ever felt free because you belonged to something bigger, a place where everyone moved in sync? Did it ever feel like you had to shrink yourself to fit? The Indus Valley's freedom was a dance of balance, where the city's rhythm gave you space to breathe, but only if you followed its steps. Imagine you're a stonecutter in Egypt's old kingdom, your hands rough from hauling limestone under the relentless Nile sun. Freedom meant serving the pharaoh, a god on earth. Your every swing of the chisel, a prayer to Manat, the divine order that kept the cosmos spinning. Each block you placed for the pyramid was a thread in that sacred tapestry, your labor ensuring. The floods came, and the stars stayed aligned. Psychologists call this self-transcendence, finding meaning in a purpose beyond yourself. Research shows it brings deep fulfillment, even in toil, because you're part of something eternal. Your place was fixed. Scribe might climb to a better life, but for you, freedom was the pride of service, not the right to choose. The pharaoh's will was the sky above you, unyielding. Picture the weight of those stones, the pride in your calloused hands. Have you ever poured yourself into a role that felt bigger than you, only to realize it defined you? The Egyptian way freedom is devotion, a life bound to the God's design, where every step you took was for the Nile's endless flow. Now you're a villager in China's Shia dynasty, kneeling in a clan settlement, the air thick with the smoke of ancestral offerings. Freedom was knowing your place, son, father, farmer, in a web of family and loyalty to the king. Your role kept the clan strong, the harvest steady, the village safe from chaos. This mirrors collectivist identity, where psychology shows group harmony outweighs personal desire. Your freedom came from fulfilling duties, tending fields, honoring elders, serving the ruler who held the land together. But step outside that role, and you risked shame, exile, or worse. The king's favor was your shield, but it came with chains. Imagine the quiet pride of a bountiful harvest shared with your kin, the weight of eyes watching your every move. Have you ever felt free because you fit perfectly into a family or community's expectations? Did it ever feel like a cage disguised as home? The shy's freedom was a woven tapestry, beautiful but tight, where your thread had to hold its place for the whole to stand. Asterisk sailed to Minoan Crete, where you're a trader on a wooden dock, the sea breeze carrying the scent of olives and salt. Freedom was the open water, the chance to sail to Egypt or trade pottery at a festival where music and laughter filled the air. Like other lands, Crete's palaces had no heavy walls, no rigid ranks etched in stone. You could paint a leaping dolphin or join a dance without a king's command. Psychologically, this is intrinsic motivation, doing what you love for its own joy. Studies show creativity sparks well-being, a sense of freedom and self-expression, but not everyone shared this. Slaves likely toiled in the fields or kitchens, their hands invisible in the vibrant frescoes. Picture yourself at that festival, your laughter mingling with the crowd. Have you ever felt free in a moment of pure creation or connection? Did you? Notice who was left outside that joy. Crete's freedom was a bright wave, washing over some but leaving others in the undertow. Their labor, the silent foundation of that open, colorful world. In Shang Dynasty China, you're an elite kneeling before oracle bones, their cracks whispering the will of your ancestors. Freedom was spiritual, pleasing the dead to secure their blessings, ensuring your family's place in the cosmic order. For most, though, it was serving the king or nobles, your life a thread in their tapestry. Psychologists note that in rigid hierarchies, spiritual purpose can feel like freedom, even when your body isn't yours to command. A farmer's freedom was duty tending fields, offering tribute, knowing your work fed the rituals above. Only the elite could ask the bones for guidance. Your role was to obey. Imagine the weight of that expectation, the flicker of hope in a harvest offering. Have you ever found freedom in a belief or duty that tied you to something bigger? Ted, it ever feel like someone else held the reins? Shang's freedom was a delicate balance, where spiritual clarity came at the cost of earthly choice. A path lit by oracle smoke, but bound by the king's shadow. Picture yourself as a Vedic sage. In India, seated beneath a sprawling banyan tree, the air alive with chanted hymns. Freedom was moksha, liberation from the cycle of rebirth, found by walking the path of Dharma. As a priest, warrior, or laborer, your caste shaped your duties, your every step a piece of the cosmic puzzle. Logically, this is self-actualization, the pursuit of deep meaning that studies show calms the mind and builds resilience. But Dharma was strict to a role, was set by birth, your freedom tied to rules etched in sacred texts. To stray was to risk not just this life, but the next. Imagine the peace of chanting those ancient verses, the weight of knowing your place was unchangeable. Have you ever felt free because you understood your purpose, only to find it came with boundaries you couldn't cross? The Vedic world offered clarity like a still pond, but its surface rippled only for those who followed its currents. In Egypt's Middle Kingdom, you're a scribe, your reed pen scratching papyrus in a bustling nome. Freedom was the chance to rise from a village boy to a trusted servant of the pharaoh, your words shaping the kingdom's records. Under the divine ruler's steady hand, stability let artisans and scribes dream a little bigger. Psychologists call this conditional mobility opportunity within a system that still holds you tight. Research shows it sparks effort, but the pharaoh's will was the horizon you could never cross. Your freedom was to climb, not to soar. Picture the pride of your ink-stained fingers. The weight of knowing your rise depended on pleasing those above. Have you ever tasted freedom in a small victory? A step up in a world that still set the rules? The Middle Kingdom's freedom was a narrow path, lit by the Nile's promise, but walled by the gods' unyielding gaze in Mycenaean Greece. You're a warrior polishing your bronze dagger, the firelight glinting off its edge as you pledge loyalty to the Wainax. Freedom was the thrill of battle, the chance to win treasure or a name that songs would carry beyond your death. Psychologically, this is mortality. Salient studies show we chase legacy when death feels near, seeking to outlive our fragile bodies. But only the bold tasted this freedom. Laborers toiled to arm the king's wars, their lives a footnote to his glory. Imagine the rush of a chariot charge, the weight of knowing one misstep could erase you. Have you ever felt free, chasing something bigger than yourself, a dream, a moment of fame? Did it ever feel like someone else's story? Mycenaean? Freedom was a blazing fire, warm for the warriors, but cold for those who fed its flames. Envision a farmer in China's Qin dynasty, your hands calloused from tilling fields under a sky heavy with dust from the Great Wall's construction. Freedom was scarce, a whisper crushed by the legal estate's iron grip. Scare. Your life was the emperor's, every step, every harvest bound to his decrees. Yet, in rare moments, freedom might be the fleeting pride of serving a unified empire, your labor part of a grand design. Psychologically, this reflects enforced conformity. Studies show strict systems can give a sense of purpose, but at the cost of individuality. The Qin's laws left no room for defiance. A single misstep could mean death. See yourself in that vast, ordered landscape, your work feeding the state's ambition. Have you ever felt a spark of freedom in doing what's expected, only to sense your own desires fading? The Qin's freedom was a chain forged in unity, strong but unyielding, binding you to an empire that demanded everything and gave little back. Now, see yourself as a plebeian in the Roman Republic, standing in Rome's forum, your voice a small note in the crowd's roar for new law. Freedom liberties was the right to vote, to shape the republic alongside patricians, though their wealth often drowned your say. This was political participation, where psychology shows shared governance fosters pride and agency. But the republic's hierarchy was steep slaves, and women had no voice, and even your vote bound to elite influence. Imagine the thrill of casting your lot, the weight of knowing power tilted toward the few. Have you ever felt liberated by having a say, yet aware your words carried less weight than others? Rome's freedom was a sunlit square, open to some, but shadowed for most. Its promise of equality, a half-kept vow under the Senate's watchful gaze. Imagine standing as a merchant in Han Dynasty China, a cart creaking along the Silk Road, scented with mulberry and spice. Freedom was a chance to trade, to grow wealthy in a stable empire, guided by Confucian harmony. You could rise through commerce, but your life was woven into social roles, family, emperor, tradition. This reflects structured autonomy. Research shows clear roles can bring peace, balancing personal gain with collective duty. Yet, stepping outside Confucius' teachings risked shame or exile. Picture the bustle of a market, your coins clinking, and the quiet pressure to honor your ancestors. Have you ever found freedom in a system that rewarded your work but demanded your loyalty? The Han's freedom was a flowing river, carrying you forward if you followed its current, but unforgiving if you swam against it. Envision a Greek scribe in Ptolemaic Egypt, your quill-tracing poetry in Alexandria's library, the air rich with papyrus and sea salt. Freedom was blending Greek and Egyptian world's philosophy with mysticism. Theater with temple rites under a royal crown that allowed such mingling. This is cultural synthesis, where psychology shows diverse influences spark creativity and belonging. But the king's rule was absolute. Your words flourished only within his bounds. Imagine the joy of a new verse, the limit of a royal edict. Have you ever felt free in a burst of creation, yet tethered by powers above? Ptolemaic freedom was a vibrant tapestry, its threads of Greek and Egyptian hues woven tightly by a monarch's hand. It's beautiful, but never fully yours. Now you're a noble in the Parthian Empire, riding across arid plains, your saddlebags heavy with trade goods. Freedom was governing your lands, trading along the Silk Road in a decentralized empire that granted local power. This reflects distributed autonomous studies, show local control fosters resilience and initiative, but loyalty to the King of Kings was non-negotiable. Defiance brought armies to your door. See yourself in a bustling caravan, the pride of your authority and the distant shadow of Ctesiphon's throne. Have you ever tasted freedom in running your own corner, knowing a higher power could intervene? Parthia's freedom was a wide step. It's open for those who rode its paths, but bounded by the empire's unseen reins. Picture a citizen in the early Roman Empire. Your toga crisp as you walk Rome's marble streets, a scroll of citizenship in hand. Freedom was the legal shield of being Roman protection from arbitrary punishment, a voice in courts. But political power rested with the emperor. Your vote, a memory of the republic. This is legalistic freedom. Research shows clear laws reduce fear, offering stability. Yet, for most, life was labor, not influence. Imagine the pride of your citizens' rights, the weight of an emperor's gaze. Have you ever felt secure in your rights, yet powerless to change the rules? Rome's freedom was a sturdy arch, sheltering citizens, but built on the labor of those outside its span. See yourself as a trader in the Kush Empire, your goods crossing the Nile, the air alive with incense and drumbeats. Freedom was worshiping your god Apis or Amenin, a society that thrived on trade and faith. This reflects cultural expression, where psychology shows spiritual and artistic outlets foster joy. But the king's hierarchy set your place. Only elites moved freely. Picture the vibrancy of a festival, your offerings to the gods, and the limits of your merchant's rank. Have you ever found freedom in faith or art, yet felt bound by your place? Kush's freedom was a golden thread, shining in worship and trade, but woven into a rigid royal tapestry. Imagine a poet in India's Gupta Empire. Your verses sung under a mango grove's dappled shade. Freedom was mock spiritual liberation and a chance to explore astronomy or art in a golden age. This is intellectual liberation studies show pursuing knowledge brings fulfillment. But your caste dictated your path. Only elites had such leisure. Envision the calm of crafting a poem, the barrier of a rigid social order. Have you ever felt free in a moment of insight, yet constrained by your role? The Gupta's freedom was a starlit sky vast for the mind, but only for those who could reach it. Now you're a Zoroastrian priest in the Sasanian Empire, tending a sacred fire, its glow warming the desert night. Freedom was worshipping freely Zoroastrianism, Christianity, or Judaism under an empire that tolerated faiths. This reflects religious pluralism, shows spiritual choice, fosters peace. But the king's authority was absolute. Dissent invited punishment. See the flames dance, the pride of your rights, and the weight of royal oversight. Have you ever felt free in your beliefs, yet wary of crossing a line? Sasanian freedom was a wide temple, open to many gods, but guarded by a king's unyielding will. Envision a warrior in China's Three Kingdoms period, your sword heavy as you pledge loyalty to a warlord. Freedom was survival security, gained by serving a leader in a land torn by war. Philosophers might speak of detachment, but for most, life was duty to a cause. This is pragmatic freedom studies, shows safety in chaos can feel liberating though fleeting. Imagine the fleeting calm of a camp at dusk, the fear of tomorrow's battle. Have you ever clung to freedom in a moment of safety, knowing it could vanish? This era's freedom was a fragile ember, glowing briefly in loyalty, but dimmed by endless strife. Step into the late Roman Empire as a farmer in a dusty villa. Your fields stretching under a fading sun. Freedom was the promise of Christian salvation, a hope that your soul could rise above the empire's crumbling borders. Roman law still shielded you. Citizenship meant rights to land or justice, but serfdom bound you to the soil. Your life tied to a lord's estate. This reflects spiritual liberation. Psychology shows faith in a higher purpose can ease earthly burdens, offering solace. If the emperor's decrees and taxes loomed, and mobility was a dream for most, feel the comfort of a church's cool stone, the weight of a plow that tethered you. Have you ever found freedom in a belief that lifted you, yet felt trapped by life's demands? Rome's freedom was a fading mosaic, its tiles of law and faith still gleaming but cracked by the empire's slow decline, holding you in a fragile embrace. Wandered through the Byzantine Empire as a monk in a candlelit monastery, the scent of myrrh curling around you. Freedom was spiritual devotion to Christian orthodoxy, your prayers a path to divine grace. Loyalty to the emperor tied you to the state, but faith offered a deeper release, a way to transcend earthly chains. This is transcendent freedom. Studies show spiritual focus fosters resilience, calming the mind. What orthodoxy was rigid heretics faced exile, and your role was set by church and crown. Sense the peace of chanting hymns, the pressure of an emperor's edict. Have you ever felt liberated by a sacred moment, yet bound by rules that guarded it? Byzantium's freedom was a golden icon, radiant with divine promise, but framed by imperial steel. Its glow, a comfort only within the empire's walls. Feel the weight of a scroll as a scholar in China's Jin dynasty. Your study warmed by a brazier's glow. Freedom was philosophical neodaism's call to detach from worldly strife, finding peace in nature's flow. For elites, this meant pondering existence. For others, social roles dictated every step. This reflects existential freedom. Research shows seeking personal meaning reduces anxiety. But the dynasty's chaos limited such pursuits. Warriors and farmers served rigid hierarchies. Breathe in the ink's sharp scent. Feel the constraint of a society in flux. Have you ever found freedom in a quiet thought while the world demanded your duty? The Jin's freedom was a fleeting breeze, stirring the mind, but often lost in the storm of a fractured land. In Zhou dynasty China, you're a farmer under a wide sky. Your fields stretching toward a king who rules by the mandate of heaven. Freedom was a just ruler, ensuring your harvests fed your family, your village safe from bandits. If the king followed the heavens' will, your world held steady. Psychologists call this a social contract. Trust in fairness fosters peace and cooperation. But if the king faltered, rebellion was your right, a spark to restore the cosmic balance. Imagine the quiet pride of a full granary, the unease of hearing whispers of a failing king. Have you ever felt free because you trusted those above you to do right? What happens when that trust cracks? The Zhou's freedom was a delicate harmony, a song of order that could shift to discord if the heavens turned away. Picture yourself as a trader in Egypt's new kingdom, standing on the banks of the Nile, the air heavy with the scent of lotus and papyrus. Freedom was the chance to sell your goods to distant markets. Your boat laden with linen or gold, knowing the pharaohs might keep the trade routes safe. Serving the divine king and the gods was your duty, but within that, you could carve out a small space of your own bartering for wealth, building a home. Psychologists call this bounded autonomy. Studies show that small freedoms within a rigid system sparked motivation, a sense of control in a world ruled by others. But the God's will and the pharaohs loomed large. Craftsmen might gain respect, but only by honoring the temples. Imagine the pride of a successful trade, the weight of knowing your life served a divine plan. Have you ever felt free in a moment of personal success, only to feel the shadow of a larger system? The new kingdom's freedom was a river flowing freely, but only within its banks, guided by the god's unyielding gaze. Now you're a noble in the Assyrian Empire, your chariot rolling through Nineveh's dusty streets, the city's walls, carved with tales of conquest. Freedom was the power to govern a province, to wield authority under the king's iron rule. Submission to the empire meant a chance to shape your corner of it, collecting tribute, building gardens, commanding respect. This reflects dominance, motivation, where psychology shows control over others can feel liberating, boosting confidence. But that freedom was a privilege. For every noble who tasted power, countless others farmers, captives knew only the whip of Assyrian order. Your authority came from loyalty, and one misstep could strip it away. Picture the thrill of issuing commands, the unease of knowing the king's eyes watched you. Have you ever felt free because you held the reins, only to realize someone else held yours? Assyria's freedom was a sharp blade gleaming for the elite, cutting for those beneath. A balance of power and fear under the empire's vast shadow. Imagine, you're a citizen in the Neo-Babylonian Empire, standing in the shadow of Babylon's blue-glazed gates. Freedom was a voice in the city's governance, a chance to shape its laws or festivals if you were among the elite. For some, it was the king's decree, wiping your debts clean, a fresh start under the temple's watchful eye. Psychologically, civic engagement studies show participating in community decisions fosters a sense of agency, a shared freedom. But only the privileged spoke in those councils. Laborers and slaves toiled in silence. Your freedom depended on fitting into Babylon's order, its gods and rulers setting the boundaries. Picture the bustle of the city's markets, the relief of a debt erased, and the weight of knowing your voice was small. Have you ever felt free because you had a say in something bigger, yet sensed limits on how loud you could be? Babylon's freedom was a vibrant tapestry, woven with civic pride, but threaded with hierarchy, its colors bright for some and faded for others. Now you're a local leader in the Achaemenid Persian Empire, governing a satrapy under the great king's distant throne. Freedom was the right to worship your gods, speak your language, and rule your people, as long as you paid tribute to Persepolis. The empire's tolerance let cultures breathe, Zoroastrians, Jews, Egyptians, side by side. This reflects cultural pluralism, where psychology shows diversity in identity fosters resilience and peace. But freedom had limits. Defy the king, and his armies would remind you of your place. Imagine the pride of leading your city, the weight of taxes sent to a far-off palace. Have you ever felt free to be yourself, yet bound by rules you didn't write? Persia's freedom was a wide road, stretching across empires, letting you walk your path, but never stray too far. The king's shadow always trailing behind. In archaic Greece, you're a male landowner in a polis like Athens, casting a pebble in the assembly's vote. Freedom Alathri was your right as a citizen to shape the city's laws, to stand equal among peers. But that equality excluded slaves, women, and foreigners who labored in the fields or homes. Ecologically, this is participatory freedom. Studies show involvement in governance boosts well-being, a sense of control. Yet the polis demanded loyalty. Dissent could mean exile. Picture the Aquara's hum, your voice rising in debate, and the knowledge that your freedom rested on others' exclusion. Have you ever tasted freedom in a moment of influence, only to see who was left outside the circle? Greece's freedom was a bright flame burning for citizens, cold for the rest. A fragile balance of power and pride in the city's early dawn. Imagine, you're a scholar in China's spring and autumn period, debating Confucius' teachings under a cherry blossom shade. Freedom was loyalty to your feudal lord, your service ensuring protection in a fractured land. But new ideas, Confucianism, early Taoism, whispered of moral autonomy, of finding freedom in virtue or detachment. This reflects philosophical awakening, where studies show exploring meaning reduces anxiety, offering inner freedom. Yet for most, life was bound to lords and fields, with little room for personal choice. Picture the calm of a scroll's wisdom, the weight of a lord's command. You ever felt free in a moment of understanding, yet tied to a world that demanded obedience? This era's freedom was a quiet seed, sprouting in thought, but rooted in duty. Its bloom waiting for a later age. In classical Greece, you're an Athenian citizen, standing in the Knicks, voting for war or peace. Freedom was democracy of the power, to govern yourself with fellow citizens, a radical act in a world of kings. But this was for male citizens only. Slaves and women were shadows in the city's light. Psychologically, this is collective agency research, shows shared decision-making fosters pride in unity. Yet freedom came with sacrifice, war, duty, or ostracism for those who challenged the polis. Imagine the thrill of your vote, the weight of knowing slaves toiled for your leisure. Have you ever felt free in a shared cause, only to see its limits? Athens' freedom was a soaring song, sung by few, its notes echoing through the agora, but silent for those beyond its walls. Picture yourself as a warrior in China's warring states, period. Serving a lord amid clashing swords. Freedom was philosophical Taoist, detachment from worldly strife or legalist loyalty to a state's iron order. For most, though, life was survival, your choices bound to a lord's command. This reflects existential freedom, where studies show finding personal meaning in chaos brings.com. But the era's turmoil left little room for autonomy. Imagine the peace of a Taoist verse, the fear of a battlefield's call. Have you ever sought freedom in your thoughts while the world demanded your sword? This period's freedom was a fleeting dream, glimpsed in philosophy but buried under war's heavy tread in India's Maurya Empire. You're a farmer under Ashoka's rule, carving a living from the soil. Freedom was following dharma duty to family, caste, king, while Ashoka's edicts promised moral liberty, urging kindness and tolerance. Psychologically, this is moral freedom research, shows aligning with ethical ideals fosters purpose, but dharma tied you to your role. A laborer's freedom was duty, not choice. Imagine the calm of a village following the king's peaceful edicts, the weight of a caste you couldn't escape. Have you ever felt free living by a code, yet bound by its rules? The Maria's freedom was a lotus, bloom, beautiful, rooted in duty, floating on a pond of imperial order. Now you're a merchant in the Hellenistic world, trading ideas and goods in Alexandria's bustling streets. Freedom was the exchange of cultures: Greek philosophy, Egyptian mysticism, Persian art thunder. Monarchs who ruled but didn't stifle. Psychologically, this is intellectual freedom studies show exploring new ideas sparks creativity and joy. Political power stayed with kings. Your voice was in the marketplace, not the palace. Picture the thrill of a new scroll, the limit of a king's decree. Have you ever felt free in a burst of learning, yet hemmed in by power above? The Hellenistic freedom was a vibrant mosaic, its pieces bright, but set in a royal frame. Tread the Mongol Empire's Pax Mongolica as a merchant, your caravan crossing vast plains under a sky of endless stars. Freedom was mobility trading from China to Persia, protected by the Khan's peace. Loyalty to the Khan ensured your safety, but defiance meant death. This is transactional liberty. Research shows secure trade routes foster prosperity and confidence. Yet the Khan's shadow loomed large. Smell the dust of the Silk Road. Feel the Khan's distant power. Have you ever felt free to move and trade, yet bound by a ruler's will? Mongol freedom was a wide horizon, open for those who served, but unforgiving to those who strayed. Rest in the Mali Empire as a guide. Your voice weaving tales under Timbuktu's minarets. Freedom was Islamic faith and wealth from gold and salt. Trade, your stories, earning respect. But the king's hierarchy set your place. This is narrative freedom. Studies show storytelling fosters identity and connection, yet only elites enjoyed true mobility. Hear the chorus drum, sense the king's authority. Have you ever felt free in sharing your voice, yet limited by your rank? Mali's freedom was a golden coin shining for traders and griots, but heavy, with the king's imprint. Walk the late Middle Ages as a craftsman in a guild hall, your tools clinking in a torchlit workshop. Freedom was urban liberties, guilds and towns winning rights from lords and peasant revolts seeking economic relief. This is collective empowerment. Psychology shows group action boosts agency, but nobles in church held sway, crushing dissent, smelled the wood shavings, filled the lord's distant rule. Have you ever fought for freedom in a group, yet faced a stronger power? This freedom was a market square lively, with new rights, but overshadowed by feudal towers. Its promise bright, but never fully free. Swayed gently in the Ottoman Empire as a craftsman in Istanbul's bazaar, the air thick with the scent of leather and spices. Freedom was living under the millet system, worshipping as a Muslim, Christian, Kara, or Jew in your own community, your traditions intact. You could trade or craft, your guild offering a voice, as long as you swore loyalty to the Sultan. This reflects communal pluralism. Psychology shows that cultural autonomy fosters stability and identity, but the Sultan's rule was ironclad taxes, and obedience were non-negotiable, and dissent invited punishment. Here, the bazaar's vibrant hum sensed the weight of imperial decrees. Have you ever felt free to live your way within a community, yet bound by a higher power's will? Ottoman freedom was a mosaic dome, styles of faith and trade gleaming under the Sultan's watchful crown, offering space to thrive, but only within his vast design. Stride through the Renaissance in Europe as an artist, your brush dipping into pigments in a sunlit studio. Freedom was intellectual painting, writing, or exploring humanist ideas that celebrated individual potential. You could question old dogmas inspired by figures like Michelangelo or Erasmus. This is creative emancipation. Studies show self-expression fuels joy and innovation. But monarchs and the church still held sway, and heresy could mean exile or worse. Feel the thrill of a new canvas, the shadow of a bishop's gaze. Have you ever felt liberated by a bold idea, yet cautious of crossing unseen lines? Renaissance freedom was a blooming garden, its flowers of thought, vibrant, but rooted in a soil of royal and religious control, where only the fortunate could fully bloom. Kneel in the Ming dynasty as a merchant, your silk bales stacked in a Nanjing market, lanterns casting a warm glow. Freedom was economic stability, trading across a vast empire and cultural pride in Confucian traditions. But dissent was forbidden. The emperor's bureaucracy demanded conformity. This reflects ordered prosperity. Research shows stability fosters confidence, though at the cost of individuality. Your wealth grew, but your thoughts stayed within. Confucian bounds, smell the market's incense, feel the weight of an official scrutiny. Have you ever found freedom in a thriving trade, yet felt silenced by rigid rules? Ming freedom was a jade carving, exquisite and enduring, but shaped by the emperor's unyielding hand. Its beauty, a privilege for those who obeyed, ride across the Timurid Empire as a poet. Your verses sung in Samarkand's turquoise-domed courts. Freedom was patronage crafting art, or studying astronomy under rulers who cherished culture, but political power was centralized. Your words serve the emir's glory. This is artistic patronage. Psychology shows creative support sparks fulfillment, though tied to power. Defiance risked losing favor, or worse, hear the lute's soft strum, sense the emir's distant command. Have you ever felt free to create, yet bound to please a patron? Timurid freedom was a starry minaret, lights of art and science shining for those who sang the ruler's tune, dim for those who strayed. Stand firm in the Inca Empire as a farmer, your terraces carved into Andean slopes, the air crisp with mountain mist. Freedom was collective labor working for the Sapa Inca, your crops feeding the empire's heart. Loyalty ensured stability, your family cared for by the state stores. This is communal duty. Studies show shared purpose fosters security, though individuality fades. Personal choice was scarce. Your life belonged to the empire. Feel the earth under your hands, the weight of the Inca's divine will. Have you ever felt secure in a shared effort, yet longed for your own path? King of Freedom was a stone terra solid and sustaining, but locking you into the empire's grand design. Kia, unyielding as the Andes, weave through the Aztec Empire as a warrior, your obsidian blade gleaming under Tenochtitlan's sun. Freedom was rising through military or religious service, your valor earning land or honor, but the gods demanded blood, and your role was rigid devotion or death. This is martial. Devotion research shows achievement in service boosts pride, though at great cost. Commoners toiled for your glory, their freedom sacrificed. Hear the temple drums, feel the weight of a priest's gaze. Have you ever felt free in a moment of triumph, yet tied to a costly duty? Aztec freedom was a feathered head, dressed dazzling. For warriors, heavy with the gods' demands. Its brilliance, built on others' labor, sailed the seas of early modern Europe as a merchant. Your ship creaking under Atlantic winds. Its freedom was a religious choice, Protestant or Catholic, after the Reformation and emerging ideas of individual rights. But monarchs and wars limited your voice, and colonies paid for Europe's gain. This is ideological liberation. Studies show new beliefs spark hope, though power resists change. Feel the ocean spray, sense the crown's distant reach. Have you ever felt free to choose your path, yet hemmed in by larger forces? This era's freedom was a new horizon open with possibility, but shadowed by kings and conquest. Its promise uneven across seas. Tread softly in the Safavid Empire as a weaver. Your loom threading silk in Isfahan's vibrant bazaar. Freedom was Shia Islam's spiritual unity and cultural flourishing art, poetry, and trade thriving under Shah Abbas. But dissent was crushed. The state's faith defined your bounds. This is religious unity. Psychology shows shared beliefs foster cohesion, though conformity binds. Your craft shone, but only within the Shah's vision. Smell the dye's sharp tang. Feel the weight of orthodoxy. Have you ever felt free in a shared faith, yet silenced by its rules? Safavid freedom was a Persian rug intricate and splendid, but woven tightly by the Shah's decree, its patterns fixed. Wandered the Mughal Empire as a scholar under Akbar. Your scrolls open in a gray's marble halls. Freedom was religious tolerance, Muslim, Hindu, Jain, or Christian mingling in a diverse empire, alongside economic prosperity for elites. But loyalty to the emperor was absolute. This is pluralistic harmony. Research shows tolerance boosts stability, though power sets limits. Your ideas flowed, but the throne's shadow loomed. Here, the court's lively debates sense the emperor's command. Have you ever felt free in a diverse world, yet bound by a ruler's will? Mughal freedom was a jeweled garden lush and open, but fenced by imperial might. Its blooms reserved for the loyal. Rest in Japan's Tokugawa shogunate as a farmer, your rice fields swaying under a peaceful sky. Freedom was stability peace. After centuries of war, your harvest secure. But strict hierarchies locked you in place. Samurai and shogun ruled your world. This is ordered tranquility. Studies show peace fosters.com, though rigidity stifles choice. Your life was steady, but personal dreams were small. Feel the breeze through the rice, the weight of a samurai's glance. If you've ever found freedom in a quiet life, yet craved something more, Tokugawa freedom was a still, pond calm, and clear, but bound by the shogunate's unyielding banks. Its surface undisturbed, but unmoving, glide through the Qing dynasty as a merchant in a Beijing market. Your silk robes brushing against stalls. fragrant with tea and ginger. Freedom was economic prosperity, trading across a vast empire and cultural pride in Confucian traditions. But Manchu rule stifled dissent. Your thoughts stayed within the emperor's rigid bounds. This reflects structured opportunity. Psychology shows stability fosters confidence, though conformity limits expression. Your wealth grew, but the dynasty's watchful eyes ensured loyalty. Smelled the market spice, sensed the weight of imperial edicts. Have you ever felt liberated by success, yet silenced by authority? Qing freedom was a lacquered, screen elegant, and intricate, its beauty unfolding for those who navigated the empire's rules, but unyielding to those who dared to paint outside its lines. Kneel quietly in the Russian Revolution as a worker. Your hands rough from factory toil, the air sharp with revolution's fire. Freedom was proletarian liberation, Bolshevik promises of equality over czarist chains. But state control soon replaced one master with another. This is revolutionary hope. Research shows uprisings spark collective fervor, though power shifts can bind anew. Your voice joined the crowd, but the party's grip tightened. Hear the chants of comrades, feel the weight of new decrees. Have you ever felt free in a moment of rebellion, yet found new chains waiting? Bolshevik freedom was a red star blazing with promise, but casting a cold light of control over your life. Wander the Weimar Republic as an artist in Berlin's smoky cabarets. Your sketches bold under flickering lights. Freedom was democratic. Participation, voting, creating though economic strife and extremism eroded it. This is fragile democracy. Psychology shows open expression fosters joy, but instability threatens it. Your art soared, but chaos loomed. Feel the pulse of the cabaret, sense the shadow of unrest. Have you ever tasted freedom in open creation, yet feared its collapse? Weimar freedom was a fleeting jazz, note vibrant and daring, but drowned by the growing roar of division. Its melody, lost in a storm, sway in the interwar period as a citizen in a European cafe. Your coffee cooling as you read of rising tensions. Freedom-where liberal democracies offered rights, while authoritarian regimes crushed them. You might vote or speak, but fascism and communism loomed. This is polarized liberty. Studies show choice thrives in open systems, but fear stifles it. Your voice felt free, but the air grew heavy with control. Smell the coffee's warmth. Feel the weight of propaganda. Have you ever cherished freedom, yet sensed its fragility? Interwar freedom was a cracked window letting in light for some, but closing fast as darkness gathered. Fight bravely in World War II as a resistance member. Your footsteps soft in a moonlit forest. Freedom was the allied cry against fascism democracy. Self-determination, but war's toll tested it. Your defiance felt noble, but danger was constant. This is defiant liberty. Research shows resistance fuels courage, though at great risk. Feel the forests chill, sense the hope of liberation. Have you ever risked everything for freedom, knowing the cost? Wartime freedom was a hidden spark, burning in secret against tyranny, but flickering under the weight of sacrifice. Glow, a beacon for a battered world. Rest gently in the Chinese Communist Revolution as a peasant, your sickle gleaming in a rice field's dawn. Freedom was collective liberation, breaking from imperialism and capitalism, promising equality. But the party's grip meant new controls. Your life shaped by state plans. This is communal idealism. Psychology shows shared goals inspire those central power binds. Your labor built a new China, but your voice was small. Smell the morning dew. Feel the weight of party rules. Have you ever felt free in a shared dream, yet bound by its makers? This freedom was a red banner waving for equality, but heavy with the state's unyielding hand. Rejoice in Indian independence as a villager in a Delhi square. the air alive with cheers and the scent of marigolds. Freedom was national sovereignty breaking. From British rule, your nation's destiny, now its own. But partitions, scars, and inequality dimmed the joy, leaving many on the margins. This reflects patriotic emancipation. Psychology shows self-rule sparks collective pride, though division fractures it. Your voice joined the anthem, but poverty or caste could silence it. Feel the flag's breeze, sense the weight of new borders. Have you ever celebrated a shared victory, yet seen its promise unfulfilled for some? India's freedom was a radiant dawn bright with hope, but shadowed by strife. Its light struggling to reach every corner of a divided land. Navigate through the Chinese Communist Revolution as a farmer, your hands gripping a hoe in a misty dawn. Freedom was collective liberation, casting off imperialism and capitalism, promising equality under Mao's red banner. But the party's iron grip shaped your life, dissent crushed by state control. This is communal zeal. Studies show shared ideals fuel unity, though central power binds. Here labor built in New China, but your thoughts stayed within party lines. Smelled the wet earth, feel the weight of collective goals. Have you ever felt lifted by a common cause, yet constrained by its rulers? This freedom was a rising tide carrying dreams of equality, but sweeping away choice under the state's unyielding current. Stand boldly in the Cold War as a citizen in a Western city. Your radio humming with news of global divides. Its freedom was ideological liberal democracy's promise of individual rights versus Soviet collective equality. Your vote or voice felt free, but the threat of nuclear shadow loomed. This is ideological choice. Research shows open systems foster agency, though fear curbs it. You could speak, but espionage and propaganda watched closely. Hear the radios crackle, sense the tension of distant wars. Have you ever cherished freedom, yet felt its fragility under larger threats? Cold War freedom was a flickering torchbright, with democratic hope, but wavering in the chill of global rivalry. Its warmth, uneven, marched proudly in the civil rights movement as an activist. Your steps firm on a Selma bridge, the air thick with resolve. Freedom was racial equality challenging, segregation demanding civil liberties for all. But systemic racism resisted, and change came slowly. This is moral defiance. Psychology shows fighting injustice fuels courage, though obstacles persist. Your voice rose in protest, but hatred pushed back. Feel the crowd's unity. Sense the weight of old prejudices. Have you ever fought for fairness, yet faced unyielding barriers? This freedom was a blazing march, bold and righteous, a trudging through a land slow to change, its steps echoing hope amid struggle. Sail through decolonization in Africa as a teacher in a newly independent village, your chalkboard lit by a lantern's glow. Freedom was national independence, casting off colonial chains, your nation reborn. But authoritarian regimes often followed, limiting your voice. This is sovereign hope. Studies show self-determination inspires pride, though power can betray it. Your lessons shaped minds, but new rulers set bounds. Smell the chalk dust. Feel the weight of a dictator's gaze. Have you ever tasted freedom in a new beginning, yet seen it bend under new masters? African freedom was a rising flag, proud and vibrant, often tangled by those who claimed its pole. Whispers softly in the Cuban Revolution as a worker, her machete cutting cane under a tropical sun. Freedom was socialist equality and anti-imperialism. Land for the poor but dissent was silenced. The states gripped tight. This is egalitarian fervor. Research shows equality drives unity, though control stifles. Your labor fed a new Cuba, but Fidel's vision owned your words. Hear the rustle of cane. Sense the party's watchful eye. Have you ever felt free in a shared struggle, yet bound by its leaders? Cuban freedom was a red star shining for justice, casting a shadow of control, its light bright only for the loyal. Dance freely in the Vietnam War era as a protester, your sign raised in a campus square, the air sharp with incense and rebellion. Freedom was contested national liberation for some, anti-communism for others, each side claiming its truth. Your voice challenged war, but governments pushed back. This is ideological clash. Psychology shows conviction fuels action, though division fractures. Feel the rally's energy, sense the weight of state power. Have you ever shouted for freedom, yet faced a world split in belief? This freedom was a turbulent river rushing, with purpose, but divided by opposing currents. Its flow fierce but unsettled. Sing loudly in the counterculture movement as an artist. Your guitar strumming in a Woodstock field, the air alive with flowers and smoke. Freedom was personal expression into establishment values, rejecting norms for love and peace. Society's pushback limited your reach. This is expressive rebellion. Studies show breaking norms sparks joy, though conformity resists. Art soared, but laws and tradition loomed. Hear the crowds, cheers, feel the weight of convention. Have you ever felt free in defying rules, yet hemmed by their pull? Counterculture freedom was a wild melody, vibrant and free, but clashing with the world's steady beat. Its notes fleeting, run swiftly in the fall of the Berlin Wall. As a student, hands touching the crumbling concrete, the air electric, with cheers. Freedom was the end of Soviet control, liberal democracy spreading as walls fell. But economic and social divides lingered, tempering joy. This is symbolic liberation. As research shows, breaking barriers fuels hope, though challenges remain. Your voice joined the celebration, but new struggles waited. Feel the wall's rough edge, sense the weight of transition. Have you ever celebrated freedom's triumph, yet seen its work unfinished? This freedom was a shattered gate, pinned to new dreams, but strewn with fragments of old divides. Its path only half cleared. Kneel humbly in post-apart South Africa. As a voter, your ballot cast in a sunlit polling station. Freedom was racial equality democracy after apartheid. Your voice finally heard. But poverty and division slowed the dream. This is democratic rebirth. Psychology shows inclusion fosters unity, though scars heal slowly. Your vote felt powerful, but inequality persisted. Smell the ink of your mark, feel the weight of past oppression. Have you ever tasted freedom in a new right, yet seen its limits? South African freedom was a rainbow bright with promise, but arching over a land still mending, its colors vivid, but not yet whole. Stand in a bustling market of China's northern and southern dynasties, a trader with bolts of silk under your arm. Freedom was spiritual Buddhist or Taoist liberation, a path to escape life's suffering through meditation or ritual. Political fragmentation meant local lords held sway, their rule shaping your life. This is introspective freedom. Studies show spiritual practices foster inner calm, even in turmoil. Yet most lived bound to land or lord, their freedom a distant hope. Hear the temple bells, sense the weight of a lord's tax. Have you ever felt free in a moment of inner peace, yet tied to a chaotic world? This era's freedom was a lotus in muddy waters, blooming in the soul, but rooted in a fractured, demanding earth. Kneel in the early Islamic Caliphate as a Christian dhimmi, your prayers rising in a sunlit mosque's shadow. Freedom was submission to Allah, or, for non-Muslims, the right to worship under protected status. This tolerance let you practice your faith, but taxes and restrictions marked your place. This reflects religious accommodation. Psychology shows tolerated diversity fosters stability. Yet, true freedom was for Muslims. Others walked a narrower path. Feel the warmth of your church, the burden of a tribute paid. Have you ever felt free to believe, yet limited by the world's rules? The caliphate's freedom was a wide courtyard, open to many faiths, but governed by one. Its peace, a gift with a price. Walk the streets of the Umayyad Caliphate as a poet. Your verses praising Damascus' golden domes. Freedom was cultural writing in Arabic, worshipping as a Muslim, moving through a vibrant empire. Muslims had rights, but theirs were fewer, their lives secondary. This is cultural primacy. Studies show shared identity strengthens community bonds, but the empire's hierarchy was strict step outside your role, and you risked exclusion. Hear the call to prayer. Feel the limits of a non-Muslim's path. Have you ever felt free in a shared culture, yet aware others stood outside it? Umayyad. Freedom was a flowing river, swift for some, sluggish for others. Its current, set by faith and power, sit in the Abbasid Caliphate's house of wisdom. A scholar surrounded by scrolls, the air thick with ink and debate. Freedom was intellectual, translating Greek texts, studying stars, or penning poetry in Baghdad's glow. Social mobility let some rise, but the caliph's rule was firm. This is cognitive liberation. Research shows intellectual pursuit sparks joy and purpose. Yet political dissent invited danger, and many toiled without such freedoms. Feel the thrill of a new idea, the shadow of a caliph's guard. Have you ever felt free in a burst of learning, yet constrained by authority? Abbasid freedom was a starry night, bright with knowledge, but bounded by the caliph's unyielding gaze. Tread softly in the Carolingian Empire as a peasant, your hands rough from harvesting under a feudal lord's watch. Freedom was Christian salvation, the promise of heaven for a life of toil. Loyalty to your Lord tied you to the land, your labor his by right. This is spiritual aspiration. Psychology shows hope in an afterlife eases earthly hardship. But serfdom, chained, you travel, or choice were dreams for nobles. Smell the earth after rain, feel the weight of a Lord's command. Have you ever found freedom in a distant hope, while today's chains held tight? Carolingian freedom was a cathedral's spire pointing to heaven, but built on the backs of those bound to earth. Roamed the Viking Age as a warrior. Your longship, cutting through icy waves, the salt spray sharp on your face. Freedom was personal honor rating for wealth, earning a name sung in mead halls. Thralls, though, knew only servitude, their lives fueling your glory. This is martial autonomy. Studies show personal achievement boosts confidence, but often at others' expense. Defeat or dishonor could strip your freedom bare. Hear the oar's rhythm, sense the thrall's silent toil. Have you ever felt free in a moment of triumph, yet ignored those who paid its price? Viking freedom was a fierce wind, lifting warriors, but leaving others in its cold wake. Rest in Japan's Heian period as a courtier. Your silk robes whispering in a Kyoto garden's hush. Freedom was aesthetic, composing poetry, painting screens, or dancing under cherry blossoms. But rigid hierarchies locked most in place. Only aristocrats tasted such grace. This is artistic liberation. Research shows creative expression fosters peace, yet peasants labored unseen, their lives rigid. Smell the blossom sweetness, feel the weight of courtly rules. Have you ever felt free in a moment of beauty, while others toiled outside it? Heian freedom was a delicate fan, unfolding beauty for the elite, but close to those beyond the palace's gaze. Drift into the Fatimid Caliphate as a merchant in Cairo's bustling souk. The air rich with saffron and the clink of diners. Freedom was worshipping as an Ismaili Muslim or following your own faith Christian, Jewish under a tolerant empire. Trade flowed freely, your goods crossing deserts to distant ports, bringing wealth and status. This reflects inclusive prosperity. Psychology shows that cultural acceptance fosters a sense of belonging, easing tensions. Yet the caliph's authority was firm. Taxes and loyalty were your price for peace. Feel the vibrancy of the market's colors, the weight of a ruler's distant gaze. Have you ever felt liberated by acceptance in a diverse place, yet aware of unspoken rules? Fatimid freedom was a woven carpet, its patterns of faith and trade vibrant, but held together by the caliph's thread, offering space to thrive only within his design. Stand tall as a scholar in China's Song dynasty, your brush gliding over rice paper in a lantern-lit study. Freedom was intellectual crafting poetry, inventing new tools, or trading in bustling cities. Neo-Confucianism shaped moral autonomy, urging harmony in thought and action. This is cognitive freedom. Research shows intellectual exploration sparks joy and purpose, but the emperor's bureaucracy set strict rules. Your ideas flourished only if they aligned with the state. Sense the calm of a finished verse, the pressure of a Mandarin scrutiny. Have you ever felt free in a moment of creation, yet bound by expectations? The song's freedom was a flowing scroll, its ink bright with innovation, but guided by the steady hand of Confucian order, limiting how far you could stray. Breathe the air of the Holy Roman Empire as a knight, your armor gleaming in a castle's shadow. Freedom was Christian salvation, a path to heaven through loyalty to your Lord and faith. Feudal privileges granted you land or honor, but serfs toiled below, bound to the soil. This is hierarchical liberty. Studies show structured roles can offer security, though unequal. Your sword served a higher cause, but rebellion risked ruin. Hear the chapel's bells, feel the weight of your oath. Have you ever found freedom in serving something greater, while others bore the cost? The empire's freedom was a stone fortress strong for nobles, unyielding for those beneath, its walls promising salvation but locking many in place. Sail the rivers of Kiev and Rus as a trader, your boat laden with furs under an orthodox cross's glint. Freedom was local governance, shaping your town's laws and embracing Christian identity. But serfdoms rise tied many to the land, their lives not their own. This reflects communal autonomy. Psychology shows local control fosters pride, though not for all. Your voice carried in the vetch, but princes held ultimate power, smelled the pine-scented air, sensed the serf's silent burden. Have you ever felt free to shape your community, yet seen others excluded? Kievan freedom was a wooden church, its icons glowing for the faithful but casting shadows on those bound to the fields. Ride across the Seljuk Empire as a nomad, your horse's hooves kicking up dust on a trade route. Freedom was worshipping as a Muslim, trading silk, or rising through military valor. The empire's reach allowed movement, but loyalty to the Sultan was absolute. This is mobile liberty. Research shows freedom of movement boosts confidence and opportunity, yet defiance brought swift retribution. Feel the wind of the open steppe, the Sultan's distant command. Have you ever felt free to roam, yet tethered by a higher power? Seljuk freedom was a desert caravan, swift and far-reaching, but following paths set by the Sultan's will, its tracks fading in the sand. Kneel in the high Middle Ages as a burgher in a European town, your wares displayed in a market square. Freedom was spiritual salvation through the church and civic, as towns gained charters for self-rule. Nobles held feudal rights, but urban life offered new liberties. Tis is civic empowerment. Studies show local governance sparks agency, yet peasants remained bound, and the church's dogma was strict. Hear the market's hum, feel the church's watchful eye. Have you ever felt free to build your life, yet constrained by a larger order? This freedom was a cobblestone street, bustling for some, a narrow path for others. Its stones laid under the church's towering spires dance in Japan's Kamakura period. As a samurai, your katana sheathed under a temple's eaves. Freedom was martial honor serving your lord with courage or Buddhist liberation, seeking peace beyond life's strife. Commoners, though, served rigid hierarchies, This is disciplined freedom. Psychology shows duty can feel liberating when tied to honor, but stepping outside your role risked disgrace. Feel the temple's cool shade, the weight of your lord's command. Have you ever found freedom in loyalty, yet felt its rigid bounds? Kara's freedom was a cherry blossom, beautiful in its discipline, fleeting for those outside the samurai's code. Stand firm in the age of exploration as a sailor, your ship swaying under a starlit Caribbean sky. Freedom was a chance to explore new lands, seeking gold or glory for Europe's crowns. But this came at a cost to colonized peoples lost their autonomy, their lives upended by your voyages. This is adventurous liberty. Studies show exploration sparks exhilaration, though often at others' expense. Your sails caught the wind, but kings and merchants reaped the rewards. Feel the ocean's rhythm, sense the suffering left in your wake. Have you ever felt free chasing a bold dream, yet overlooked its shadow on others? This era's freedom was a boundless sea, thrilling for explorers, treacherous for those whose lands were claimed. Waves carrying both hope and harm bask in the enlightenment as a philosopher in a Paris salon. Your quill scratching ideas of liberty under candlelight. Freedom was rational. Self-governance locks rights. Rousseau's social contract challenging kings and clergy. You could debate equality, but monarchs still held power, and many lacked a voice. This is intellectual awakening. Research shows questioning norms fosters empowerment, though change is slow. Hear the salon's lively chatter. Feel the crown's distant grip. Have you ever felt free in a new idea, yet restrained by the world's old ways? Enlightenment freedom was a glowing lantern casting light on human potential, flickering in the shadow of entrenched power. Its promise bright, but not yet universal. March boldly in the American Revolution as a farmer turned soldier, your musket heavy in a misty valley. Freedom was political independence, breaking from Britain, claiming rights for white male property owners. But slaves and women remained bound, their voices unheard. This is revolutionary liberty. Psychology shows collective action fuels hope, though exclusion dims its shine. Your vote shaped a new nation, but its ideals were narrow. Hear the drum of independence, sense the chains others bore. Have you ever fought for freedom, yet seen its limits for others? American freedom was a new dawn, radiant for some, dark for those excluded. Its light a promise yet to reach all. Rally in the French Revolution as a citizen. Your voice rising in Paris' crowded streets, the air sharp with smoke and hope. Freedom was universal, liberty, liberté, eagle-eyed, fraternate, demanding rights for all. But violence and chaos often betrayed those ideals, and many suffered. This is idealistic fervor. Studies show shared visions inspire, though turmoil can fracture them. Feel the crowd's pulse, sense the guillotine's shadow. If you've ever felt lifted by a grand cause, yet haunted by its costs. French freedom was a tricolor flag, bold and soaring, but stained by blood. Its promise of equality, a dream caught in revolution's storm. Toil in the Industrial Revolution as a weaver, your loom clattering in a Manchester factory's din. Freedom was economic opportunity, new jobs, new wealth, but exploitation-bound workers, too long hours, and meager wages. This is industrial ambition. Research shows opportunity drives effort, though inequality breeds resentment. Tier wages bought a better life, but the factory's rhythm owned you. Hear the machines roar, feel the weight of endless shifts. Have you ever chased freedom through work, yet felt trapped by its demands? Industrial freedom was a steam engine, powerful and promising, but grinding down those who fed its fires. Its progress uneven. Ruled as a soldier in the Napoleonic era, your boots marching under the code Napoleon's legal banner. Freedom was equality before the law, no feudal privileges, but Napoleon's authoritarian rule limited true liberty. This is legalistic equality. Studies show Fair laws foster trust, though power curbs freedom. Your rights were clear, but the emperor's will was clearer. Feel the pride of a uniform. Sense the weight of his command. Have you ever felt secure in equal rules, yet ruled by a single voice? Napoleonic freedom was a grand arch structured and proud, but crowned by one man's ambition. Its promise half kept. Cheer in Latin American independence as a criollo in a plaza. Your heart racing as colonial chains break. Freedom was national sovereignty liberation from Spain or Portugal, though often only elites gained power. This is patriotic liberation. Psychology shows independence fuels pride, but exclusion lingers. Your voice shaped a new nation, but indigenous and poor remained sidelined. Here, the crowds roar, sense the old hierarchy's weight. Have you ever felt free in a new beginning, yet seen others left behind? This freedom was a bright flag waving for a nation's birth, but casting shadows on those outside its elite circle. Work diligently in the Meiji Restoration as a craftsman, your tools shaping wood in a Tokyo workshop. Freedom was modernization, leaped to industrial strength, but individual liberties bowed to national goals. This is collective progress. Research shows shared missions inspire, though personal choice suffers. Your craft fueled a new era, but the emperor's vision guided your hands. Smell the sawdust, feel the state's watchful eye. If you've ever felt free in a greater cause, yet constrained by its rules. Meiji freedom was a rising sun, brilliant and unifying, but demanding conformity. Its light warming only those who followed its path. Dance in the Victorian era as a reformer in London, your pen drafting calls for suffrage or labor rights. Freedom was social reform, expanding votes, improving work though class and gender barriers persisted. This is progressive aspiration. Studies show reform sparks hope, though inequality slows change. Your voice rose, but elites held firm. Here, the city's bustle sensed the weight of tradition. Have you ever pushed for freedom, yet felt old structures resist? Victorian freedom was a gaslit street, brightening with reform, but shadowed by class and convention. Its glow reaching only so far. Tread wearily in the scramble for Africa as a villager. Your fields trampled under colonial boots, the air heavy with dust and gunpowder. Freedom was a distant dream, crushed by European powers claiming to civilize your land. For you, it meant clinging to traditions or resisting through quiet defiance, though chains often followed. This reflects resilient identity. Psychology shows maintaining cultural roots fosters strength amid oppression. But colonial rule stripped autonomy, leaving most bound to foreign masters. Feel the warmth of your village fire. Sense the weight of a governor's decree. Have you ever held on to freedom in your heart while the world stole it from your hands? This era's freedom was a fading ember, kept alive in secret songs and rituals, but smothered by empire's relentless march. Its glow, a whisper of hope in a darkened land. Raise your voice in the Khayar dynasty as a poet in a Tehran tea house. Your verses soft under lantern light. Freedom was a flicker of constitutional reform, a chance to speak for change amid foreign influence. But the Shah's rule and European pressures limited your words, keeping most in rigid roles. This is aspirational reform. Studies show calls for change spark hope, though power resists. Your poetry stirred hearts, but the court's shadow loomed large. Hear the tea house's murmurs, feel the weight of foreign eyes. Have you ever felt free to dream a change, yet bound by forces beyond your reach? KR freedom was a fragile, quill-scratching hopes of liberty, quilled by the Shah's and Empire's unyielding grip. Stand resolute in the Russian Empire as a peasant, quilled, your breath misting in a snowy village church. Freedom was spiritual orthodox, Christianity's promise of salvation, though serfdom bound you to the land until 1861. Even after Tsari's rule curbed your voice. This is spiritual resilience. Research shows faith offers solace in hardship, though earthly chains persist. Your prayers rose freely, but your life belonged to lords or to czar. Feel the church's candlelit warmth. Sense the weight of a noble's command. Have you ever found freedom in belief while your body stayed tethered? Russian freedom was a silver icon radiant with divine hope, but locked in a world of serfdom and autocracy. Slight Tim for most marched through the progressive era as a worker in a Chicago factory, your hands stained with machine oil. Freedom was reformed women's suffrage, labor rights pushing against racial and class barriers. But inequality lingered, and your voice was small against industrial giants. This is reformist zeal. Psychology shows collective action fuels empowerment, though systemic hurdles remain. Your vote or strike felt powerful, but bosses held the reins. Hear the factories clatter. Feel the hope of a rally's chant. If you ever fought for freedom, yet faced walls too high to climb. Progressive freedom was a rising tide lifting some toward equality, but leaving others stranded in its undertow, its promise incomplete. Sing softly in World War I as a soldier, your boots sinking into trench mud under a gray sky. Freedom was framed as national self-determination, Wilson's 14 points promising sovereignty. But the war's grind and imperial deals often betrayed that hope. This is idealistic sacrifice. Studies show shared ideals inspire, though reality dilutes them. Your fight felt noble, but victory served distant powers. Smell the damp earth, sense the weight of orders from above. Have you ever fought for a grand cause, yet doubted its truth? This freedom was a tattered banner raised high for nations, but torn by war's chaos, its promise frayed for those in the trenches. Surf the waves of the digital revolution as a coder in a neon-lit room, your keyboard clicking under a screen's glow. Freedom was access to information, global connectivity through the internet, ideas flowing freely across borders. Teased, but surveillance and data privacy concerns cast shadows. Your every click tracked. This reflects digital empowerment. Psychology shows connectivity boosts agency, though oversight breeds unease. You could share your voice online, but corporations and governments watched closely. Feel the hum of your computer. Sense the weight of unseen algorithms. Have you ever felt liberated by a world of knowledge, yet wary of who controls it? Digital freedom was a vast web sparkling with possibility, but tangled with invisible threads. Its reach both empowering and precarious. Stand hopeful in the post-Cold War era as a citizen in a bustling city square. Your newspaper, fresh with tales of new democracies. Freedom was the spread of liberal democracy rights, votes, open markets after the Soviet fall. But authoritarianism lingered, challenging the dream. This is democratic optimism. Research shows open systems foster hope, though power resists. Change of voice felt stronger, but global tensions persisted. Hear the square's lively chatter, sense the shadow of rising strongmen. Have you ever embraced freedom's promise, yet felt its fragility? This freedom was a bright horizon, radiant with democratic ideals, but clouded by those who sought to dim its light. Its glow not yet universal. March boldly in the war on terror. As a journalist, your pen racing in a dusty outpost, the air tense with conflict. Freedom was framed as security democracies spread against extremism, but civil liberties often shrank under surveillance and war. Your words could shape truth, but censorship loomed. This is securitized liberty. Studies show. SafetyFosters.com. Though control erodes trust. You reported freely, but government's eyes followed. Feel the weight of your notebook. Sense the strain of distant wars. Have you ever cherished freedom's safety, yet feared its cost to your voice? This freedom was a shielded flame burning for protection, but flickering under the weight of fear, its warmth, a guarded gift. Rejoice quietly in the Arab Spring as a protester in a Cairo square, your voice rising amid banners and dust. Freedom was the demand for democracy, human rights, fair rules, challenging dictators. But mixed outcomes left many dreams unfulfilled, with repression resurging. This is revolutionary fervor. Psychology shows uprisings spark courage, though instability fractures hope. Your chants echoed, but power fought back. Hear the crowds roar, feel the weight of tear gas. Have you ever shouted for freedom, yet seen it slip through chaos? Arab Spring freedom was a desert bloom, vibrant but fleeting, its roots struggling in rocky soil. Its promise bright, but often unkept. Navigate softly in the big data era as a student, your phone glowing in a quiet cafe. Its freedom was digital. Autonomy, access to endless data, shaping your world online. But surveillance and corporate control threatened privacy. Your choices tracked. This is technological liberty. Research shows digital tools empower, but oversight breeds caution. You could learn freely, but algorithms shaped your path. Feel the screen's cool touch. Sense the weight of unseen trackers. Have you ever felt free in a digital world, yet watched by invisible eyes? This freedom was a flowing stream, clear and accessible, but guided by unseen currents. Its clarity, both gift and trap. Stride proudly in the populist movements as a voter. In a rural town hall, your ballot cast under a flickering bulb. Freedom was national sovereignty, rejecting globalism, amplifying local voices against elites. But division and exclusion often followed, narrowing the dream. This is populist empowerment. Studies show reclaiming control fuels pride, though it risks alienation. Your vote felt powerful, but others' rights wavered. Hear the hall's murmurs. Sense the tension of clashing ideals. Have you ever felt free in standing for your own, yet seen others pushed aside? Populist freedom was a rising flagpole for some, divisive for others. Its colors, vivid but fraying at the edges. Rest gently in the COVID-19 pandemic as a worker. Your mask muffling breaths in a quiet street. Freedom was contested personal. Liberties versus public health. The right to move, clashing with safety. Your choices felt yours, but restrictions shaped them. This is balanced autonomy. Psychology shows safety drives compliance, though limits spark resistance. You work from home, but rules bound your steps. Smell the sanitizer's sting, feel the weight of lockdowns. If you've ever valued freedom, yet accepted chains for the greater good. Pandemic freedom was a muted light shining for survival, but dimmed by necessity. Its glow a delicate balance. Sway calmly in the post-pandemic era as a citizen, your steps light in a recovering city park. Freedom was rebuilding economic recovery, global cooperation, digital privacy debates. But inequality and surveillance lingered, tempering hope. This is restorative liberty. Research shows renewal fosters optimism, though challenges persist. Your life felt open, but new norms constrained it. Hear the park's birdsong, sense the weight of data trails. If you've ever rebuilt freedom, yet felt old limits linger. This freedom was a budding tree green with possibility, but rooted in a world still healing. Its branches reaching, but not yet free. Breathe deeply in the contemporary era as a digital nomad, your laptop open in a sunlit co-working space. Freedom is balancing digital privacy, economic opportunity, and global cooperation. But surveillance, inequality, and geopolitical tensions challenge it. This is fluid autonomy. Studies show flexibility empowers, though uncertainty breeds caution. You work freely, but algorithms and borders shape your path. Feel the sunlight's warmth, sense the weight of global divides. Have you ever felt free to shape your life, yet hemmed by unseen systems? Today's freedom is a shifting cloud, vast and open, but drifting through a sky of competing forces. Its form ever-changing, dreams softly in a future unwritten standing. As a global citizen in a connected world, your phone buzzing with news. Freedom is the hope for equitable access, fair systems, shared prosperity. But polarization and control threaten to bind it. This is aspirational unity. Psychology shows shared goals inspire, though division resists. Your voice joins a global chorus, but challenges loom thickly. Hear the hum of connection. Feel the weight of uncertainty. Have you ever dreamed of freedom for all, yet seen its path unclear? This freedom is a distant star bright, with potential, but twinkling in a vast, unpredictable night. Its light, a guide yet to be followed.